Hi everybody, thank you for joining us today if you are watching live, and if you are watching on replay, then once again thank you very much. If anyone has got any comments, please feel free to pop them in the chat, because we're using the Restream platform so that we can go out across several channels today. Can't necessarily see who is making any comments, but we will get back to any comments and any questions that you might well have. So my name's Carol Hanson, and I inspire women who have a wardrobe full of clothes but nothing to wear, and I love to do it consciously. So in the first place, I take women shopping in their own wardrobes, and in the second place, I help them to shop more consciously and more responsibly, because I'm fully aware of the damage that the fashion industry is doing and has been doing to the planet. And I am so excited today to be joined by the amazing Miranda Essex, who is head of growth for Thrift Plus. I've been following Thrift Plus for a while now, and I was lucky enough to be asked to be part of their brand ambassador program in April. And the more I find out about Thrift Plus and what it's doing for, not just for the sustainability side, but also for the charity sector, the more excited I get. So Miranda, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks so much. It's great to be invited to be with you, Carol. Hi, everyone. Just to tell you a little bit about Thrift, if you haven't heard about it before. Thrift is a secondhand clothes resale platform, which allows you to donate your best secondhand clothes and raise money for charity while earning credits to spend again on secondhand fashion or vouchers on our store. Our ambition is to make it as easy as possible to shop secondhand, and ideally to make it just as attractive, if not more so, to buy with fast fashion. So bringing all of the principles of e-commerce, making it kind of smooth, quick, easy, free shipping at times, or quick returns, all that type of thing, so that we can hopefully take on fast fashion and reduce the number of clothes that go to landfill and make fashion more sustainable.
Yeah, because the purpose behind Thrift Plus, why it was set up in the first place, was to basically offer charities a much better online marketplace, wasn't it? Because there are many charities who either have maybe some shops, and very often staffed by volunteers, and one or two have internet presence, but generally there's an awful lot of charities that would not be able to afford to set up their own e-commerce setup or have the resources to do it. But this is where Thrift Plus comes in, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're able to make it easy for charities to encourage their supporters to raise funds for them through donating their clothes. We can help raise money for any charity that's registered on the Charity Commission website. And even for charities with charity shops or for those without, we can provide an additional funding stream. And I think particularly for small organizations and maybe with supporters who can't constantly donate more and more, it's a nice way for them to be able to donate. And I think increasingly, as we're seeing more and more people shop online, not least during lockdown and during the pandemic last year, shops were closed for several months, including charity shops. And that meant that actually their opportunity to sell any of the clothes in physical stores was taken away. So we're really pleased to be able to help kind of fill that gap in donations. And we also think that on average, we're able to attract a higher selling price online, because you can inevitably just reach more people and reach a larger audience. In charity shops, I shop in charity shops at times, and I think sometimes it can appeal to quite dedicated and committed shopper, someone who loves rifling through rails and looking for things that suit them, and that's not for everyone. Sometimes people just want to shop online and for it to be quick and easy. So I think that's where Thrift can come in, hopefully supporting charities and providing an alternative to charity shops.
Yeah, and in addition to accepting donations from private individuals, you also have various partnerships, don't you, with retail brands? Can you tell us a bit about how that works?
Yeah, of course. So we have partnered with several brands and retailers like Farfetch, Hush and French Connection, and we work with them in two main ways. One is to provide a take-back service for their customers. So, for instance, if you're shopping with French Connection, you can order a thrift bag on their website, and that will arrive with your order, and you'll then fill up your thrift bag, return it, and be rewarded with a discount off your next French Connection purchase. Right. Or another way is providing a kind of bulk donations. So as you probably know, often slightly imperfect returns or kind of odds and ends, end of line stock at the end of a season. It can be difficult for retailers and brands to find a place to put them, really. They often end up in landfill, or they just give them away. Whereas we can take those bulk donations, process them, and sell them online, either donating the proceeds to charity or returning a portion of those sales back to the retailer, who can then spend them on whatever they like, but hopefully their sustainability strategy and agenda.
And that's what you encourage.
We're like, cash, feel free to invest it in circular fashion, but of course it's
So let's talk a moment. That segues very neatly into talking about why we should look at secondhand fashion, doesn't it? Because we've seen over the years, and particularly, as you say, during lockdown, the very many of the online retailers and fast fashion retailers particularly have been reporting a growth in sales. But without wishing to dismiss them, a lot of the problem with fast fashion is that it is ridiculously cheap, and therefore it means that someone somewhere along the supply chain is having to pay for that, and that they are not using great quality materials in many instances, and that can be damaging to the environment in itself, and the quality of manufacture means that people are turning those clothes through very quickly, along with the price points making it so easy to do so. So then what tends to happen is people get rid of those clothes, and they either end up getting donated, or more likely, sadly, they can end up getting thrown away. And that's where secondhand shopping can step in, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the role we hope to play at Thrift is helping to power the secondhand resale economy, and thereby turning the fashion industry from a linear model to a circular model. So as you've said, kind of today, we make clothes, usually extracting lots of resources, using lots of water, lots of carbon, build them, kind of develop the clothing in unsustainable methods, at times exploiting people in developing countries who are working on those products, then shipping them globally, and then selling them in high volumes, discounted, and people just replace them and throw them away. So the stat that really shocked me when I first started working at Thrift was that 73% of all clothes made are sent to landfill or incinerated after their first life. So that's pretty shocking. And I think lots of us hope that when we put our clothes in the recycling, or pass them on to a friend, or donate them to a charity shop, they end up being used again. I think at times that's not possible, and that's where Thrift comes in. We're hoping that rather than that 73% of millions and millions of items of clothes in the UK and worldwide going in the bin essentially, or being burnt, we give them a second life, because 9 times out of 10, after an individual is kind of bored of an item of clothing or it doesn't fit anymore, it's still in great condition. I mean, I still have clothes in my wardrobe that I've worn for 10 years. Obviously, things change. You go off things. Eventually, things do get holes in them. But the whole idea is that people buy fewer things that are higher quality. Where they can, they buy secondhand. Where they can, they keep their clothes for as long as possible. And then when they no longer want them, they give them another life through using a service like Thrift Plus, or a charity shop, or other online resale services.
Yeah, and that's so important, isn't it? And I think that's the real key point, is that if we're buying quality items, it doesn't mean that we're not going to get bored of them. And then, because I find this a lot with my client base, that they will say they don't get rid of clothes because they feel guilty about getting rid of clothes, because although they're bored with them, and they're not wearing them, they don't feel they can, because they're good quality clothes. And again, this is where somewhere like Thrift can come in, and offer those clothes a further life. So if someone wants to donate clothes to Thrift, how does it all work?
So the way it works is you order a free Thrift bag from our website. It will arrive, and then at that point you have to register your Thrift bag through scanning a QR code you fill it up with clothes, you decide which charity you'd like to donate to, and how much you'd like to donate. You can also earn some of the proceeds as credit, and then you return it to us for free via Collect Plus or InPost. When the thrift bag arrives at our warehouse, we will do a quality check to make sure things are clean, in good condition, are recognizable brands. We'll then tag the items. They'll go through our photography booths, and we'll list all of the different details about the item, size, color, etc. Then we will list it for sale. Before it goes on sale, we offer our customers the chance to review the price and any of the details on the item, just to make sure they're happy. And then they go live. And then, unlike other resale platforms, when an item sells, we just ship it out for you. I think I've certainly spent hours of going to the post office in the past, which can be a bit of a pain. So the idea is we just take away that hassle and just make it easy for you. And then when an item sells, you'll receive a notification saying how much that sale has raised for charity.
Brilliant.
And how many credits have been credited to your account. And the buyer or the shopper will also see how much their purchase has raised for charity as well. So it's quite a nice shopping experience as well. You kind of see where the money you've spent is going.
Absolutely. And I always get a little bit of a thrill when I'm buying on Thrift Plus and you suddenly see, oh, look, I've raised money for charity.
Nice.
It does feel good, but it's not just a little bit that you guys have raised, is it? You've put out an amazing press announcement this morning. Do you want to tell us about that, please?
Yeah, so we have just reached the milestone of raising £1 million for charity. Really, thank you, which is really exciting. And I think particularly for people like Joe, our founder, who've been with Thrift from the very beginning, just seeing the results of the effort the team has made to get there is really brilliant. And of course, all the efforts from everyone in the Thrift community, everyone who's sent in clothes, everyone who's shopped with us. It's really, really exciting to see the company grow, and also to know that as the company grows, the amount we can donate to charity and the number of items of clothing we can divert from landfill grows as well. So yeah, very exciting milestone to have hit. And we're now trying to work out how long it might take us to reach our next million.
So how long has it taken to reach that first million then?
So Thrift was founded at the end of 2017, and as you probably know, setting up a retail business is pretty weighty in terms of kind of operations. There's lots of investment in things like our photography booths and warehousing space and training up the team. So kind of grew slowly but steadily for the first couple of years. And where things really took off was in 2020. Two big kind of boosters. One was Joe going on Dragon's Den, which got lots of interest, which was really exciting. And then the second thing, of course, lockdown has been a very challenging time for many, but it has accelerated lots of kind of slowly growing trends like shopping online, like awareness of sustainability, like awareness of the impact fashion has on the environment. Yeah. So if you look at a graph of kind of how the company's done, it's almost a hockey stick in terms of how quickly we're growing. So we're hoping to hit that next million significantly quicker, and then the next million after that.
Yeah, and that's incredible. And I'm going to put a link to Joe's Dragon Den appearance in the comments with this video as well, because I watched it this week and I was so impressed with the way that he kept his cool with those dragons.
And they're very kind of aggressive, aren't they? And I know it's always one of Joe's friends told me that they had a viewing party when he was on. And I think if you see yourself or hear yourself, I think he will have been cringing, but he did an amazing job. And I watched it before I joined Thrift, obviously, as you would, researching the company. And I remember thinking, like, okay, this guy really knows what he's doing. He'll be a great person to work for.
Yeah, and his passion just shines through, doesn't it, as well, in terms of what he's looking to do. So you guys are
not deluded, which I think is often not something that people in Dragon's Den achieve.
No, absolutely. So so you got that money, and then you got some further investment, didn't you, from angel investors as well, in terms of the support, the financial support that you were getting. So what does that mean for Thrift Plus in terms of being able to expand its facilities? And does it mean more staff? Does it mean more equipment? Does it mean better IT systems? What's it all about?
Yeah, we've done a couple of rounds. So last year we did a round, and we're invested in by the Green Angels Syndicate, who are the UK's only kind of climate change focused angel group, which is really great. So they were part of our seed round, and it's great to obviously have investors on board who can help advise, but also very aligned with your mission.
Yeah.
We're doing another fundraise at the moment, and really where that investment goes is investing in warehousing, of course, like technology, materials. There's lots of tech infrastructure that needs to be built. For instance, our automated pricing tool and our photography booths and, you know, our whole website and our databases and our inventory tracking. There's kind of a lot to be maintained and built there. And then also staff. So we now have about 40 people in the warehouse, where I know about this time last year, it was around 15. And our team is now at 12, but we are keen to grow. So we're kind of looking at where we need to fill space in the team so that we can keep going.
That's quite an incredible growth strategy, isn't it, from that point of view? And when you say I'm intrigued, because I've been involved in e-commerce before. What do you mean by the automated pricing? Because I've always wondered how people, unless it's in a sort of local pre-love boutique or something like that, what happens in terms of pricing with secondhand clothes?
So it's fairly subjective. There are certain kind of rules of thumb of secondhand. It tends to be around a third of RRP, but obviously it depends on the brand and the condition, and how desirable the item is. We have a tool that basically scrapes data from the web. So for instance, similar items on stores like eBay or other kind of secondhand marketplaces, then we'll aggregate those, take an average, and then suggest the price. Of course, that it's good to have an automation, but of course we recognize that, you know, certain item, like a bot can't pick up whether that was a really, you know, on trend item, or is a brand just had an incredible boost in the media or whatever. So that's why we let our customers review their items, just to make sure they're happy with how they're being priced, because obviously the more they sell for, the more we raise for charity, the more that person will earn as well.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, I was going to ask, because there must be a manual process in there, but you're allowing the customer to make that manual process, are you, rather than, or does anyone at Thrift Plus kind of oversee?
It's overseen. It's overseen by our tech team, and at the moment, obviously, we're trying to automate where we can to become more efficient. But of course, there are some processes that are still manual. Automation requires a lot of investment. But we do have certain automations, like for instance, if an item hasn't sold after several weeks, we'll then automatically drop the price to sell through. So there are certain kind of things like that we've got built into the way the website is managed.
Yeah, because otherwise that would be an incredible manual process, and particularly because you've got each individual item, unless you've got a few sort of overstocks from retailers and so on, is an individual item. It's not like other websites where you'll have an item in and you'll have several sizes of the same item, is it?
No, and this is where it's quite difficult to get photography right, because of course most fashion brands have beautiful photography where it's a person wearing it in lots of different stances and positions, but when you've only got one of that item, and that item will probably sell for, let's say, an average of £15, it's not, I mean, we can't do any more than taking fairly kind of simple photos as quickly as possible. So that's always a bit of a fine balance. Of course, you want the photography to be good, but also can't invest that amount of time if it's just a unique item.
No, absolutely. And I was going to ask you, how many items do you get per week at Thrift on average?
So at the moment, we're processing about 33,000 items every few weeks. But it is increasing. So we're just hiring new warehouse staff. At the moment, it can take a few weeks for the bags to be processed, but our goal is to get that down to less than a week. So the idea is it will be pretty effortless. You just send in a bag, it'll be processed quickly, hopefully sold quickly, and then it's all done and dusted quickly for the seller. So yeah, we've gone from kind of, a few hundred again this time last year now to kind of working at the thousands. We've got a big 30,000 square foot warehouse in Market Harbour in Leicestershire in the UK, which I mean, they're old aircraft hangars, it's just like big boxes.
Brilliant.
They're pretty huge. So that's where everything happens.
That sounds amazing. So one last question is about your role in Thrift Plus. So you're head of growth. So what's the area that you're covering, Miranda?
Good question. I think growth is kind of a new piece of language that's quite startup-y, but really it is marketing and strategy. So my background was in marketing and innovation. So my job is essentially to help the company grow. So that could be anything from our social media strategy to understanding where there are pain points or problems in our service and trying to find ways to improve it. So it's quite broad. And one of the things I really enjoy about my role is that it's very varied. Like with lots of small teams and startups, you do a bit of everything. You don't have a very kind of narrowly defined role. And then a big part of what I do is also working with our partners. So establishing new partnerships, helping our partners kind of run their partnerships and making sure things are going well and giving them support and advice on how to increase the number of people who are donating clothes with Thrift.
Right.
And also just keeping a close eye on figures, like reporting on the business, identifying problems, solving them. It's a really fun role and I'm really enjoying it.
It sounds an incredibly exciting role. If you decide to leave, then can I apply?
as well.
And I love that sort of diversity that you can get really involved in the business like that. It must be thrilling, particularly with a business that is growing like that and is a business that is doing so much, not just for charity, but also in terms of keeping clothes out of landfill as well. So it must be ticking so many boxes for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Probably my dream job, just because I've always wanted to do something where your effort is kind of directly linked to positive impact in the world. I've always cared a lot about the environment and sustainability. So it's really lovely to know that I'm not just trying to kind of hit targets to make money. It's for something deeper than that.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of being involved in what obviously Thrift isn't an actual startup, but is a very young company at the moment and is growing fast. So that's again is another great place to be, isn't it, from that point of view? So apart from reaching your next million and in terms of the charity donations, what do you see next for Thrift at the moment?
Well, one thing we're very interested in is exploring different ways to make secondhand shopping more attractive. Right. I think buying secondhand clothes is becoming a more established behavior. People are kind of used to shopping already, and all they're doing is switching that behavior to shopping secondhand. Yeah. But we're interested in different models like rental and subscription. One thing that we are interested in is obviously the idea of people subscribing to Thrift and then getting a certain number of items, some of which they keep, some of which they don't, and that being a kind of regular process. So there are lots of interesting kind of innovation projects we're exploring. And then other than that, I think we're interested in the idea of a thrift club, where our most loyal customers get certain benefits. And also things like Secondhand September. We think they're a really powerful way to get people to make a commitment as part of a community to buy fewer clothes from, I don't know how to say, first-hand companies. So we're interested in finding a way to do that in a way that is really kind of exciting and uplifting to our followers. I think above all, we recognize that fashion's supposed to be creative and fun and expressive, and actually guilting people about fast fashion and their shopping habits isn't that positive. It's supposed to be something which is enjoyable and makes people feel good. So finding ways to deliver that whilst also having a positive impact is very much at the heart of what we're trying to do. We're not trying to berate people for shopping. Everyone does. You often secondhand can't find a pair of jeans which is the right length and size and whatever. But we kind of want to help people on that journey while still enjoying, the clothes they buy and feeling good about that as well.
Yeah, it is a fine line to tread. You're absolutely right. And I think it's very easy to turn people off if you get too activist about it, in the sense of, as you said, guilt tripping people, which isn't very helpful, but making it a more positive experience and explaining the benefits of secondhand shopping is a much better way of doing it. And I love the idea of rental and subscription service, particularly because you have some gorgeous designer pieces on your website, which people may possibly think a little bit longer about purchasing, rather than as you said, the average item price on there is about £15. But to have something where you're going out for a special occasion and you can just, because I've been talking about rental this week on my own platforms, but to have something where you can go and get a designer dress or a designer outfit as part of a rental service from and it's secondhand as well, that just sounds absolutely amazing to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are some great services like Her that are already out there that we're kind of interested in partnering with. And also there are also other interesting areas for us, like for instance, if something's no longer good enough for rental, it needs to be perfect condition and designer, where do those clothes go next? Actually going to Thrift would be a great way for those clothes to make sure they get a second life when they're still in great condition, but maybe have one tiny loose thread that someone would be more than happy to have.
Yeah, that's an interesting model, and I guess there's another one, isn't there? There's that potentially, and I don't know how you handle this, is what do you do with the any items that you get that come in that are not fit for resale? Do you have an outlet for those as well?
So we currently donate them. So our charity retail partners come and collect them, and then they sell them in their stores. And that might be for kind of lower prices. I think in the future, we'd love to be able to separate that out into kind of two different streams. One is not for us, but still for resale. And one would be recycling. So kind of separating out those streams. And another thing we're looking at is I had an interesting kind of request from a mental health department in a hospital a couple of weeks ago about providing clothes for patients who might arrive and be admitted and actually only have the clothes they arrived in, which is not great for kind of mental and physical health. So there are certain places where we can also provide clothes that maybe aren't good for resale but are still clean, great condition. And I'm looking at kind of different ways that we can make sure that those clothes have a good impact when we donate them as well.
I love that to me, because when you donate to charity at times, and I encourage my people, if they're not donating to someone like Thrift Plus, obviously they are always the first place that I refer people to, but is to look at, rather than necessarily going to direct to the high street charity shops, to look at charities where clothes will go direct to the end user. Now, obviously that is not a volume donation at all, because I think part of the problem is we're just donating so much that everybody just gets overwhelmed with it, in a sense, don't they? But I love that idea of the hospital and maybe providing stuff for people who've only got the clothes they arrived in. That just feels a really good feeling.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And I think it's nice to think one of the things that we hope to provide is a sense of where your clothes go afterwards. Like, I think one of the benefits of the notification of what charity your purchase raised money for is that you know where it's gone, and ultimately get a kind of PayPal receipt to see that money's been donated. I think sometimes, when you take a bundle of clothes down to a charity shop, you hope they've done good, but really you don't know where that's kind of what's happened, how much money it might have raised, whether anyone bought it. And I think it is quite nice to know, that someone has benefited from it and how much.
I totally agree, but I'm guessing you don't sell everything through the platform, and obviously if you're taking in that many items of clothing per week, there has to come a point where you have to say, well, this isn't selling. So what happens then?
So if items don't sell for quite an extended period of time, we will retire them, but that doesn't happen too often. I mean, there are certain things, might have been uploaded last January that are still on the site. I think over time we probably will start retiring things a little bit more frequently. But our ambition is that as our reach grows and as we have more sales channels and more traffic to the site, maybe some of those items kind of languishing in our warehouse might get to see the light of day, because they're still good quality and probably would have a great home.
Yeah, it's just fine. It's just matching that buyer and seller, isn't it, from that point of view?
Exactly.
Exactly. That seller. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's interesting. Now, your average purchase price on, as you said, per item is about £15. But do you find that the high street items or higher end the high street items versus the designer items, which tend to sell through more quickly, or is it more complicated than that?
It slightly depends by brand, and also just on the quality of the item. I mean, high street, obviously it's a lower price point, so it tends to kind of move a little bit quicker, but there are quite a lot of nuances to that.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's interesting. But yes, I'm guessing that if someone sees a pair of Jimmy Choo shoes on your website, they're not going to be sitting there for that long.
No, yeah, if there are those kind of absolute steals, I think, yeah, they tend to go quite quickly.
Absolutely. Miranda, thank you so much for your time today. We haven't had any questions come up actually in the comments section, but I will check back, and if I can't answer them, I will come back to you if that's okay. If people are watching these on replay. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who's been watching us on live today, and look forward to seeing what you think when you go on to Thrift Plus. And of course, as an ambassador of Thrift Plus, I'm delighted that I can offer you a 20% discount code for using the site. So I'll be popping that in the comment section as well. And once again, thank you very much for joining me, and I will be seeing you in the next video. Bye for now.